Hello students, welcome to class 11 biology. Today we are going to continue with our ninth lesson in biozoology. Last class we have learned in detail about the muscular system, and under muscular system how the movement, contraction and relaxation of the muscles occur, and what are the regulatory proteins and contractile proteins. Okay, and we have seen about the introductory part for the skeletal system, various kinds of skeletal system seen in various organisms. The axial skeleton forms the main axis of the body. It consists of the skull, hyoid bone, vertebral column and thoracic cage. The skull is composed of two sets of bones. They are cranial bone and facial bone. Skull, when you can describe with the two sets of bones. One is cranial, other is facial. Facial bones are about 14 in number and cranial is about 8 in number. Right? So together it constitutes about 22 bones in our skull. The capacity of the cranium is 1500 centimeter cube. These bones are joined by sutures. Sutures means the immovable joints. Sutures are the joints which looks like the stitches. Okay, they are immovable joints. Paired parietal, paired temporal, individual bones such as frontal, sphenoid and occipital ethmoid bones. So which I read now are the names of the bones in the skull. You can very well see here. Here you can see temporal bone. You can touch and feel your bone. Parietal, occipital, frontal. Then you can see ethmoid bone, which is just below the nasal region. Then sphenoid bone. Follow the upper jaw is called maxilla, lower is mandible, and cheekbone is called as the zygomatic bone. It is important for one more question. The bone present in the cheek region is zygomatic bone. Follow? So you can just touch and feel your skull to know the names of these. Right? So nasal bone, sphenoid, temporal, ethmoid, lacrimal bone, zygomatic bone, maxilla, mandible is given in the frontal view. This side view is much clearer for you. So with this you can know what are the bones present in your skull. Right? So then we have the large hole in the temporal bone is the external auditory matrix. Temporal bone, you touch and feel your temporal bone. In that there is a big opening that is called as external auditory matrix in this facial bones. Maxilla, zygomatic, palatine, lacrimal, nasal are the paired bones, where mandible, lower jaw and vomer are the unpaired bones. They form the front part of the skull. The single U-shaped hyoid bone is present at the base of the buccal cavity. Okay, so there is no joint for this hyoid bone. It is just present without any joint. Okay, so because of the muscles around them, they are placed in one place. Follow? So middle ear has three tiny bones, that is malleus, incus and stapes. About these bones we will learn in detail under sensory organs. Then together they are called as the ear ossicles. Follow? So malleus, incus and stapes together they are called as the ear ossicle. The upper jaw is maxilla and lower jaw is mandible. The upper jaw is fused with the cranium and it is immovable. Lower jaw is connected to the cranium by the muscles that is movable. The most prominent opening is called as in the skull is called as the foramen magnum. Okay, so this foramen magnum helps to continue the bone medulla. It helps to continue the extension of the brain, that is medulla oblongata, that is getting continued as the spinal cord. Okay, that comes out through this foramen magnum. Then coming to vertebral column, it has got 33 bones. Okay, so which are arranged one below the other. They have the specific region for them to get attached with one another. Follow? So the vertebral column has 5 major regions. They are cervical, thoracic, lumbar and sacral. Follow? So when you can learn only from the diagram this vertebral column. It is easy to by heart and write also. And whichever is given in the diagram is enough. Okay, cervical, that is the neck region, 7 bone. Then the thoracic region. The abdominal region is the stomach region. Above that, there is a region that is called as the thoracic region, where you have the presence of the heart and the lungs. Okay, that region is called as the thoracic region. There we have 12 vertebrae. Then you are coming to the lumbar region, lumbar vertebrae, then sacrum, coccyx. Okay, so that makes the total vertebral column. So this coccyx is found to have 4 coccygeal vertebrae found in the infant, which is fused to form one bone in the adult. Okay, in the case of the children, you can just feel it as 4 different bones, and once we grow up, they are fused to form a single bone. Each vertebra has central hollow portion. Why it should have central hollow portion? For the spinal cord to run through. Do you follow? For the spinal cord to run through. So each vertebra has a central hollow portion and neural canal through which the spinal cord passes. This is important. The first vertebra is called as the atlas. First vertebra is called as the atlas. Second vertebra is called as axis. Atlas is articulated with the occipital condyles. The vertebral column, that is occipital condyle, is a place in the skull. Do you remember when we studied about the regions of the skull? The back side of your head, you have this occipital condyle where it is getting articulated. That is coordinated action. The vertebral column protects the spinal cord, supports the head and serves as a point of attachment for the ribs and muscular structure of the backside. Then sternum. Please listen, the sternum is the word is most important, and you have to learn this definition. Sternum is a flat bone which is present in the mid-ventral line of the thoracic region. It provides space for the attachment of the thoracic ribs and abdominal muscle. Then rib cage, there are 12 pairs of ribs. Each rib is a thin flat bone. They are connected dorsally to the vertebral column and ventrally to the sternum. Do you follow? So when we see this diagram, you will know what is sternum. Can you locate the word sternum? So it is a frontal region where the rib bones are getting attached on the front side. Okay, at the back it is getting attached with the vertebral column. So as usual, we have the ribs which is just getting into 12 in number. First 7 ribs are called as the true ribs. 7 ribs are called true ribs because all the rib bones are getting attached with the sternum directly. Then 8, 9 and 10 are called as the false ribs. Then 11, and because it is not getting attached with the sternum, it is getting attached with the true ribs. That is why they are called as the false rib. Then we have 2 ribs, that is 11 and 12. They are called as the floating ribs. Okay, so far we have learnt about rib cage, sternum, vertebral column and skull. Follow? Skull, vertebral column, sternum and rib cage together constitute the axial skeleton. Now we can go for the appendicular skeleton. The bones of the upper and lower limbs along with their girdles constitute the appendicular skeleton. So appendicular skeleton composed of 126 bone. To start with the appendicular skeleton, pectoral girdle. Okay, pectoral girdle is the upper limb region. Upper limbs are nothing but your hands. Okay, so they are very light and allow the upper limb a degree of motility not seen anywhere. And the girdle is formed by 2 halves. Each half of the pectoral girdle consists of So each half means one hand. Okay, so along with the clavicle or collarbone, you can touch and feel the area where your collar, shirt collar comes in. There is a bone that is called as the collarbone. Scapula is a region at the back. When you touch your back on the side, you will have a triangular shaped region, triangular shaped bone. You might have seen in children at the back. Okay, so near the hand there is a triangular shaped bone. Yes, that bone is called as the scapula. The scapula is large thin triangular bone situated on the dorsal side of the rib cage between second and seventh ribs. It has slightly elevated ridge called as the spine. The projection as a flat expanded process is called as acromion. This is a different region in the scapula. Clavicle articulates with this process and below the acromion it is a depression called glenoid cavity. Do you follow? Collarbone, did you touch and feel? Scapula, do you have? So in between the collarbone and scapula you have the presence of the hand, upper limb. So upper limb has to get fixed to one pit or cavity, right? So that cavity is called as the glenoid cavity. Do you follow? So the bones in the case of doll and all, when you just take the hand separately, there will be a cavity, there will be a hole to which the hand can be fixed, right? So likewise we will also have the cavity for your upper limb to get fixed up. Okay, that is called as the glenoid cavity. And then we have the arm that is differentiated into the humerus to form the shoulder joint, and each clavicle a long slender bone with two curvature which lies horizontally and connects the axial skeleton with the appendicular skeleton. Okay, so the upper limb consists of 30 separate bones which is used for motility. So much you move, so much joints are present. If there is no joint, it will be a single mass. Okay, so much of joints present, we are making so many movements for writing, for handling things. Okay, the skeleton of the arm region, the region between the shoulder and elbow is called as the humerus. You can touch and feel your shoulder, your elbow, in between that one bone is there. Okay, that is called as the humerus. The head of the humerus articulates as me. It is able to move, which is able to coordinate. Okay, with the glenoid cavity of the scapula and forms the shoulder joint. The distal end of the humerus articulates with the two bones, that is radius and ulna. Okay, forearm, between the wrist and the elbow we have the presence of the two bones, that is radius and ulna. Right, the forearm is the region between the elbow and the wrist, and olecrayon process is situated at the upper end of the ulna. Okay, so which forms the pointed portion of the elbow. The hand consists of the carpal, metacarpal and phalanges. So whichever we have learnt now, you can see with the picture. Clavicle bone, right? Then scapula, triangular shape bone. Then acromion, which is connecting this scapula and clavicle, is the acromion. Follow? Then glenoid cavity, to which this humerus is joined. Right? In this elbow region, in between elbow and wrist, we have two bones, radius and ulna. Olecranon process, that is the pointed region of the elbow. Then after the wrist, below the wrist, we have the presence of this metacarpal and phalanges. Okay, so this is your finger region. This is about your pectoral girdle. Next we shall see about the pelvic girdle. How we have seen the upper arm, we will see about the lower arm or the legs. The pelvic girdle is a heavy structure. Compared to the pectoral, it is heavy structure. It is composed of two hip bones, called as coxal bone. Hip bones are called as the coxal bone that secure the lower limb to the axial skeleton. Okay, together with the sacrum, coccyx and hip bones forms the basin body pelvis. Each coxal bone consists of three fused bones, ilium, ischium and pubis. The coxal bone consists of the ilium, ischium and pubis. At the point of fusion of ilium, ischium and pubis, a deep hemispherical socket is present. It is called as acetabulum. So, deep hemispherical socket is called as the acetabulum. It is present on the lateral surface of the pelvis. Can you follow? Glenoid cavity where your arm is fixed. Likewise, we have the cavity that is acetabulum to which your leg is fixed. Follow? So, the similar structure for humerus we have here is the femur. Ventrally, two halves of the pelvic bone meet to form the pubic symphysis containing fibrous cartilage. The ilium is the superior flaring portion of the hip bone. Each ilium a secure joint with the sacrum posteriorly. The ischium is a curved bar of bone. The V-shaped pubic bones articulate anteriorly at the pubic symphysis. The pelvis of the male is deep and narrow, large heavier bones, and female is shallow, wide and flexible in nature. Okay, and it helps during the pregnancy, which influences the female hormone. Here we have the pelvic girdle. As we have seen in pectoral girdle, we have the pelvic girdle. Here this is ilium, pubis, ischium. Can you locate these three words? Ilium, pubis, ischium together constitute the pubic bone or coxal bone. Okay, so here the two bones are getting attached with one another by pubic symphysis. Okay, so then one lower limb is shown here, femur. Femur is nothing but the thigh bone, thigh region. This femur is getting attached to the pelvic bone or coxal bone, where you have the presence of the cavity. That cavity is called as the acetabulum. Then you have presence of the knee. This knee has got the patella as a bone that is present on top of the knee joint. Then you have tibia, fibula. Below that we have the ankle. Similar structure to the wrist, we have the ankle in the leg. Okay, and tarsal, metatarsal and phalanges. Do you remember carpal, metacarpal we have learned? In the same way we have tarsal, metatarsal and phalanges. The same thing which we have learned here is described over here. Okay, so patella is otherwise called as the kneecap. Well, you can please go through this paragraph, any doubt that can be discussed. Okay, then structure of a typical long bone. So structure of a typical long bone tells you how it is arranged, what are the compositions and functions of the bone. So it has diaphysis, epiphysis and the membrane. A tubular diaphysis or a shaft forms the long axis of the bone. It is constructed of a thick collar of compact bone surrounds the central medullary cavity. The epiphyses are the bone ends. Compact bone forms the exterior of the epiphysis and their interior contains spongy bone with a red marrow. The region where diaphysis and epiphysis meet is called as the metaphysis. The external surface of the entire bone except the joint is covered by the double membrane called as periosteum. Membrane that is covering the bone is called as the periosteum. The outer fibrous structure is called dense irregular connective tissue. The inner osteogenic layer called osteoblast, which secrete bone matrix element, and osteoclast. In addition, there are primitive stem cells, osteogenic cells that gives rise to the osteoblast. The periosteum is richly supplied with nerve fibers, lymphatic vessels and blood vessels. The internal bone surface are covered with delicate connective tissue membrane called endosteum. The endosteum covers the tuberculae of spongy bone and lines the canal that pass through the compact bone. It also consists of the osteoblast and osteoclast. Osteoblast and osteoclast are the bone cells. Between the epiphysis and diaphysis, epiphyseal plate is present. Okay, they help in the growth of the bone. Do you follow? So these are the things which we have learned in this paragraph. Okay, so proximal epiphysis, metaphysis, then we have the diaphysis. Diaphysis is the major region of the strong bone, then epiphysis the start of the bone. Both are connected by means of metaphysis. So epiphysis is a spongy bone. Okay, so then we have the presence of blood vessels and a covering of the membrane periosteum, medullary cavity filling with bone marrow. All these things are seen in the diaphysis. Okay, so then we are coming for the types of bone joints. So we have the several kinds of the joints which are movable and which are not movable. The names and the area of the joint is given in this tabular column. You can just read by heart this, which we have learnt already. See here, these sometimes they are playing protective role in this process. Force generated by the muscle are used to carry out the movement through the joints, which help the human functional activity of daily living, ambulation, and the joints acts as the fulcrum of a lever. So fibrous joint, they are immovable joints. There is no movement possible. Cartilaginous joints, they are slightly movable joints which joins the surfaces or separate by the cartilage, and slight movement is only possible. And synovial joint, they are freely movable joints. The articulating bones are separated by the cavity which is filled with the synovial fluid. Okay, so the whole human skeleton and the names are given, just can go through. Okay, so if anything happens, any disorders happen in this system, what would be the names of the disorders and what are all the symptoms of this disorder? That is what we are going to learn. Disorders of muscular and skeletal system. First, coming to muscular system, a name of the disease is myasthenia gravis. It is an autoimmune disease. It is an autoimmune disease. It is a disorder affecting the action of acetylcholine at neuromuscular junction. This acetylcholine helps in the conduction of the nerve impulses that will be affected. Okay, so that in which in turn will affect the movement. When the disease progresses, it can make the chewing, swallowing, talking, even breathing difficult. Tetany is a rapid muscular spasm. It is a pulling pain. Okay, occurs in the muscle due to deficiency of parathyroid hormone, resulting in the reduced calcium level of the body. Muscle fatigue. Fatigue is nothing but the tiredness. Okay, so the muscle fatigue is inability of the muscle to contract and relax. This is due to lack of ATP, lack of energy. Okay, so ATP and accumulation of lactic acid occurs. Okay, by anaerobic breakdown of glucose. So the glucose has to undergo aerobic respiration in order to produce ATP. If it is undergoing anaerobic respiration, then it will produce lactic acid, accumulation of which will make the muscles to get tired. Okay, atrophy, the decline in the cessation of muscular activity results in the condition called atrophy, which results in the reduction in the size of the muscle, makes the muscle to become very weak, which occurs with the lack of usage as in the chronic bedridden patient. Muscle pull is actually the muscle tear. A traumatic pulling of the fibers produce a tear is known as the sprain. This can occur due to the sudden stretching of the muscle beyond the point of elasticity. Back pain is a common problem caused by muscle pull due to improper posture with the static sitting for long hours. Muscular dystrophy, the group of disease collectively called muscular dystrophy, and is associated with the progressive degeneration and weakening of the skeletal muscle fibers, which will lead to the death of the lungs and heart failure. The most common muscular dystrophy is the Duchenne muscular dystrophy. Then coming to the skeletal system, arthritis, inflammation of the bones, joints is called as the arthritis. Osteoarthritis, the bone ends of the knees and other freely movable joints wear away a person's with the age. Rheumatoid arthritis, the synovial membrane becomes inflamed, accumulation of the fluids in the joints. Okay, this can begin at the age, but the symptoms are usually emerging before the age of 50. And gouty arthritis, inflammation of the joints due to accumulation of the uric acid crystals. Osteoporosis is a very dangerous condition where the pores are produced in the bone. It occurs due to the deficiency of vitamin D and hormonal imbalance. It causes rickets in children and osteomalacia in adult female. It can be minimized with adequate calcium intake and vitamin D intake and regular physical activities. Benefits of regular exercise: endurance. Aerobic activities increases the breathing and heart rate. They keep the circulatory system healthy and improves the overall fitness. Then we have the body to be strength. With the exercise, make the muscles stronger. They help to stay independent and carry out everyday activities such as climbing stairs and carrying bags. Balancing exercise helps to prevent falls, which is common problem in older adults. And flexibility exercises, the muscle used in the exercise grow larger and longer. Resting heart rates goes down. More enzymes are synthesized in muscle fiber. Ligaments and tendons become stronger. What is tendon? It is a connection between muscle and the bone. Joints become more flexible. Protection from heart attack, influences the hormonal activity. It improves cognitive functions, prevents obesity, promotes confidence and esteem, aesthetically better with good physique, overall well-being with good quality of life, prevents depression, stress and anxiety. During muscular exercise, there is an increase in metabolism. The O2 need of the muscle is increased. The requirement met with the oxygen-rich RBCs available to the active sites. There is an increase in heart rate and cardiac output along with the balanced diet. Physical activity plays a significant role in the strengthening of the muscles and the bone. Okay, so coming to bone fracture. So as you know, bone could get broken and it can be treated by the suitable methods. So bone fracture, even though the bones are strong, they are prone for breaking. Positioning of the bone ends, completeness of the break, orientation of the break relative to the long axis of the bone, penetration to the skin. All these things are to be considered. Following common types of fractures are transverse, oblique and oblique displaced. Oblique non-displaced and oblique displaced are the types of bone fractures. Okay, there can be a spiral fracture, green stick fracture and comminuted fracture. Mechanism of healing of bone fractures. Bones are the cellular living tissue capable of growth and they can undergo self-repair and remodeling. Okay, so the formation of hematoma is the first stage where the bone breaks, the blood vessels in the bone surrounding tissue or torn results in the hemorrhage. Due to this hematoma, a mass of clotted blood forms the fracture site. The tissue at the site becomes swollen, painful, inflamed. The death of the bone cells occurs due to lack of nutrition. Formation of the cartilaginous callus. Within a few days, several events lead to the formation of soft granulation tissue called as the callus. Capillaries grow into the hematoma and phagocytic cells invade the area and begin to clean up the debris. So during this condition, fibroblasts and osteoblasts invade from the nearby periosteum and endosteum and begin reconstructing of the bone. The fibroblasts produce fibers, the chondroblasts secrete cartilage matrix. Okay, so that this could be repaired. The formation of bony callus is the most important step for the formation of the bone. Okay, so the new bone tuberculae begin to appear in the fibrocartilaginous callus Gradually, it is converted into the bony callus. Okay, so this bony callus continues to form the normal bone, completely woven bone. Remodeling of the bone. Bony callus formation will be continued for several months. After that, bony callus is remodeled. The excess material on the diaphysis exterior and within the medullary cavity is removed and compact bone is laid down to reconstruct and shaft walls. The final structure of remodeled area resembles like an unbroken bony region. Dislocation of the joints. So dislocation of the joint is a condition where a fracture is a condition where the bones will get broken, and dislocation means it is a moving from its original position. It is common with the players. You might have seen most of the cricket players are suffering with this dislocation of the joints. Okay, so sometimes it may occur in the congenital stages. What is congenital? It is newborn. Congenital deformity are due to the genetic factor and factors operating on the developing fetus. Traumatic dislocation is due to serious violence. It could occur in shoulder, elbow, and hip region. Pathological dislocation caused by the disease called tuberculosis. Paralytic dislocation caused by paralysis of one group of muscles and extremity. So these can be treated. If the joint does not return to the normal condition naturally following the treatments could be given manipulation, mobilization, medication, and rehabilitation. Physiotherapy is a therapeutic exercise to make the limbs to work near normally. It is a rehabilitation profession with the presence of all health care centers. The therapeutic exercises are carried out by physiotherapists. The common problem at the end of the fracture treatment is the wasting of the muscle and stiffness of the joints. These problems can be restored by physiotherapy with gradual exercises. It is proven to be effective in the post-surgery treatment and management of the arthritis, spondylosis, musculoskeletal disorders, stroke, and spinal cord injury. So far in this lesson we have learned in detail about the muscular disorder. We have learned in detail about the skeletal system and skeletal system disorder. Okay, so your homework is to make the flow chart for the types of disorders for muscle and types of disorders for bone. Okay, so we shall continue with the next chapter in the next class. Thank you, students.